Sanjay Jha, you must have heard some of the defenses that were coming from Tehseen Poonewala earlier. What is your take? Is it that those who are leaving are just bad, frustrated, and they were also part of the problem, or that they are leaving because they've just not been heard over the last few years?
Well, I think you answered the question. I heard Tehseen is a very dear friend, and he's a very passionate follower of the Congress and supports it vigorously in the TV debates. But, you can't be living in a fool's paradise. I'm sorry. I think this is the problem. I mean, Tehseen is a very dear friend, and I don't mean to be sarcastic here, but he's part of the problem. You can't be living in you can't be delusional about Congress's problems. I mean, I look at politics from a very simple angle. Who's winning? Or if you're losing, how are you fighting back? It's simple. You're not winning and you're not fighting back. So that's the problem for the Congress party. All these veterans who are leaving, what does it tell you, right? It tells you that they are not optimistic anymore. They're not hopeful anymore. They don't have sanguine expectations of the party's future, which is so sad because the Congress is part of India's historic freedom struggle. Yes. It's been in government for 55 years. And for the last 10 years, it's been on its own internal implosion. And nothing is being done to arrest it. And I think, let me give you just one example, right? Yesterday, Javid Shergill quit. I know him. Javid is a young guy, bright, dynamic. And Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad on the other side of the, if you call it as the age spectrum, he's quit too. And both of them have said something very similar. And that to me is symptomatic of the larger problem within the Congress. In simple words, leadership needs to communicate and engage, especially with dissidents. But if you are going to have political entrepreneurs around you, many of the people around the party leadership are those who are so self-seeking people. They have no political impulse. They basically are there because they are creating their own future. They have their own private agendas. They have misled Rahul Gandhi. The question is that Rahul Gandhi has to be smart enough to not be misled. I mean, that is the whole challenge. You can't justify it. As Tehseen was trying to do is to say that, listen, Rahul Gandhi gets criticized. Let me tell you, I have headed parts of many organizations. A leader must need to take the criticism. It's okay. I mean, to me, if CNN is criticizing Rahul or NDTV is criticizing Rahul, it is because you're relevant. You're important in the political space. Otherwise,
you are a power center. Now, Rahul Gandhi wouldn't be criticized if he wasn't the important power center in the Congress party, even if he's not the president today.
Yeah, exactly my point. That, end of day, I think it's the media, and, a lot of people criticize the media, and I know there are many faults with the media. I'm not going to run away from that reality. But the fact that Rahul Gandhi and the Congress are still a topic of such animated discussion should also tell the party that there are people hoping for the Congress party to rise and fight back.
In fact,
India cannot become a one-party democracy.
No,
and there are
I was going to come to that exactly, Sanjay. But before that, I wanted to ask you a question. You said Rahul Gandhi needs to be smarter to not be controlled by these entrepreneurs around him. But the same issue has been raised multiple times. Two things. One, he's a non-serious politician. So you can't always depend on him. The Congress leadership itself cannot always depend on him. He comes and goes. His foreign trips are often talked about. So not a 24/7 politician. That is one thing. Always a consistent criticism of him. The second is that he's being controlled by this coterie. Now, if it's been nearly 10 years and you haven't been able to get out of that, you haven't been able to grow out of that, what's the answer then? The answer, should it not be to look beyond Rahul Gandhi?
Well, I have a very simple thumb rule based on my corporate and political experience. If you find the kitchen too hot, step out of it. Simple. And leadership is not everybody's cup of tea or coffee. It's a tough job. You got to firstly know what you're saying. You got to be a great communicator, hopefully bilingual. You got to lead a team of people whom you trust. You also got to listen to people whom you don't possibly like, but they are part of the team. You can't ignore them. Then you got to have strategy. You got to know how to raise funds. You got to know how to understand your data. You also got to know how to campaign and travel all over the country. It's a tough job. And therefore, I believe, leadership is an exceptional challenge. And if Rahul is not measuring up to it, I have always said it, and I say so despite the fact that I like him personally enormously, that Rahul should have just taken a break from leadership. I hope he does even in the September election, and let a Sachin Pilot and a Priyanka Gandhi combination lead the Congress. I have been tired of saying it. I've said it to people within the party. I've written columns saying Priyanka Gandhi will keep the loyalists and the cadres motivated that the Gandhi is still a centrifugal force. Give us Sachin Pilot, a young man, dynamic, hardworking, ambitious, great communicator. Give him a chance.
The worst thing is that this Azad resignation, Jaivi leaving, is coming even as we're all looking forward to that election within the Congress party for the next president. So they're not even waiting for that process to get over. It just goes on to show that they have no hope.
Well, let me tell you, how does this sound when media reports tell you that Mrs. Gandhi has said to Mr. Gehlot, please take over? How does it sound? That there is an election on, and there is a report that says that Mr. Gehlot has been asked to take over. Yes. So is this entire election a sham or what? I mean, that is the problem. Yes. I believe that today, if we had a presidential system and, people could fight for Congress president, I think a Manish, a Sachin Pilot, a Shashi Tharoor, I'll be very honest, I would have put my hat in the ring as well. Well, you put an ideology, you put your philosophy, you tell what you're going to do if you become the president of the party and pitch for it. But unfortunately, we can't do that. None of us, unfortunately, can do it on our own.
Yeah, and this is why when Tehseen, unfortunately, he's not with us now, so I don't want to drag him, but this is what Tehseen was saying, that why didn't you, take over the leadership or put your hat in? The reality is in Congress, you cannot do it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real tragedy. I'll tell you what, I'll be very honest, I haven't said it to any TV channel. If I wasn't suspended, and I would have loved to throw my hat in the ring, if nothing else, to tell people that there is an alternate philosophy. I'm not dynastic. I have no corruption charges against me. I pay all my taxes on time. And I'm a very passionate believer in Congress's ideology. I'm sure there are many people like me in the Congress who would love to say, well, why don't I fight?
Yeah.
But this is the problem. This is the problem. And the Congress has to figure out an answer.
And, finally, Sanjay Jha, I do want to ask you. Now, the media may get criticized, whatever you may say for the BJP and the opposition on the attacks on Rahul Gandhi. They also come because of the failures surrounding him. But it is a problem that the principal opposition party in the country to the BJP is just disintegrating month after month, if not day after day. That is the problem for everybody. And the media also often talks about it, because if the Congress keeps disintegrating like this, doesn't put up a front, a cohesive front, alone or otherwise, with other parties to the BJP, it is a problem for our democracy.
Yeah, it is. And can I answer you? And I'll tell you something else. I believe one of the reasons why Rahul Gandhi has struggled to resurrect the Congress is because he just doesn't engage with the media. I'm being very frank with you. I have said it in internal conversations. You can't be the leader of a party and call it go the media. You know what? Media will have views. Some will be ideologically left of center, right of center. I can understand that. But, as a leader, you have a platform. I mean, I could have said, I'm not going to go on CNN because I've got something else to do. But because I'm speaking with you, whether people agree or they don't agree with me, at least they're hearing my viewpoint. And I always believe that Rahul Gandhi, if he were to engage with everyone, an NDTV, a CNN, a Times Now, an Aaj Tak, an ABP, India Today, NewsX, engage with people. People hear you. That's what politics is all about. Democrats go to Fox News and Republicans go to CNN and MSNBC. But that politics is about engagement.
Yeah, fight for your ideology, right? You cannot expect it will be smooth sailing. You'll have to fight for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me tell you something. I feel that the media has got every right to question the Congress for being so sloppy in a fight back. I mean, I always believe that the government is going to get away with murder. The BJP is having a walk in the park because the Congress has made it easy. Simple.
And other parties have benefited. It's not like there are not other regional parties that have not managed to give the BJP a fight. So, of course, there is the ground and the electoral reality. But, okay, I come back to the question internally, Sanjay Jha. Do you expect that there will be more after Azad of his ilk in the Congress party? Old guard, senior leadership, the Congress may call them frustrated today. They may call them, people who have been ungrateful. Do you think that there will be more exits?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll prefer an exit rather than having people who are demoralized and demotivated within. And, end of day, let me tell you, it's a message, right? Mr. Azad leaving is a message to the entire Congress party, organization, cadres. So stop saying that it's okay, it's no big deal. I do hope all my friends in the Congress Do not come on television today and say, you know what, Mr. Azad ultimately became a turncoat and he's joining some other party, etc. I'm telling you, when anyone leaves your organization, you should worry why are they leaving. I have never supported Rahul's statements that people who leave us because they have no ideological commitment.
They don't have a stomach for a fight. That's what they
you
say.
need people to fight. An organization is not an abstraction. You're not just bricks and mortar. You're people. When you lose people, you lose your party. A certain pulse of your party is gone. The soul becomes weaker.
Okay.
And I don't think this attitude that anyone who leaves is a traitor, I think that's all rubbish.
So, Sanjay, do you believe the Congress can move on from the Gandhis? I mean, Sonia Gandhi, because of health and other issues, cannot be a full-time president. Even though more people are agreeable for her than for Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi doesn't want to take up the Congress presidentship, but you talked about Ashok Gehlot's name. Do you believe the Congress will finally move on in a way that actually, enthuses them and brings some fresh energy? Or is it going to be more of the same?
Well, I hope not. I mean, there is a saying that, as a banker, I remember we used to talk about it, too big to fail. Organizations believe they're too big to fail. And I think the Congress has got itself into this hallucination that we are too old, great, and big to fail. I think you're making a fundamental mistake. Let me tell you, politics is fluid. Organizations vanish. It's happened. I'll give you an example of the French elections. Emmanuel Macron became a president in a party that was created 3 years ago before he became president. And the grand socialist and the right conservatives, they are obliterated today in France. So things can change. Aam Aadmi Party is a threat for the Congress. TMC is a threat for the Congress. And the BJP always has remained a formidable challenge. So you can't take it for granted that people are going to vote for you all the time. They need to see a leader. They need to see passion. They need to see a fight back. The party has been very sporadic. It's done some good work. It just is not consistent. And you know what? Let me tell you the truth, because in television, you know it, and I, as a spokesperson, have been aware of it for a long time. Elections have always been quasi-presidential. It's never just parliamentary. You always like to know who's the leader. Mrs. Gandhi made it presidential. She was part of the Congress. So we can't blame Narendra Modi for making it extremely, self-styled, individualistic politics. It's a nature of the beast. People want to know, Mera Pradhan Mantri kaun banne wala hai? So you tell them who it's going to be. That's the reality.
Actually, that brings me to my final question, Sanjay. I know I've, kept you for some time, but it's an interesting conversation we are having. Some of the attacks that come from Rahul Gandhi too, it just almost, he's operating in a separate parallel political landscape. He keeps going on about the RSS. He keeps going on about something else. I mean, you've got to fight on issues that the public will relate to. I mean, look at how the Congress woke up so late on price rise. They were first protesting on the streets because Rahul Gandhi was being called for investigation in the Herald case. And then they suddenly realized how bad it was looking. It's just not catching the political pulse. And Rahul Gandhi with his tweets or whatever he picks the issue, is it resonating?
Well, let me give you what I believe is the adage that the Congress party cannot ignore. A party or a company or a country becomes like its leader. If you look at the BJP and the Congress, you'll feel the difference. Mr. Modi is ambitious, hungry, a very aggressive communicator. Look at the BJP today, from the spokesperson down to the workers. They are always on the prowl. Look at the Congress. Mr. Gandhi doesn't communicate. He's conservative. He speaks very sporadically. The Congress is becoming a little old-fashioned. It's not looking very savvy with the times. So the Congress has become to a great extent like his leadership. Cocooned, not vibrant, not communicating, not available for conversations, and somewhere down the line, as a result, self-destructing in slow motion.
Well, very important words there, Sanjay, from someone who's obviously been within the Congress party. I request you to just hold on with me.